Will you ask me something or I should
No,
directly say?
I will ask.
Okay.
तो सर मतलब आप यहाँ स्ट्रैटेजिक डिपार्टमेंट में हैं, तो आपका एरिया ऑफ इंटरेस्ट चाइना वगैरह है, इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स में रहा है, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि इसकी हिस्ट्री कैसे थी? जो इंडिया चाइना का डिस्प्यूट अभी हम लोग देख रहे हैं चल रहा है, इसमें मतलब इसका हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव क्या रहा है? क्या इसमें कैसे, क्या इससे पहले भी स्टैंड ऑफ रहे हैं दोनों आर्मीज़ के बीच या दोनों कंट्रीज़ के बीच? कुछ आप उस पर बताएंगे हमें?
Thank you, Afla. Actually, I teach here at the Department of Strategic and Security Studies, and my interest, being a student of international politics and issues like this, is to understand as to why and how things actually come to a point when armies have to come, and when there are clashes which we see. So if we go to the roots of the thing, all these things go back to the 1950s when both India and China became independent countries. And if I may say, India was among one of the first non-socialist bloc to accept the existence of China, because you might be aware, people might be aware that when nations come into existence, when nation gets their birth, when nations are born, so the first thing is for these nations to get accepted by others, and it matters a lot. It matters a lot. It definitely matters a lot, and particularly during the situation in which China asserted its the People Republic of China asserted its sovereignty, the time in which it did that. So during that time, accepting a nation birth was indeed a great thing, and India did. So, in the very beginning, the notion of the relationship between these two countries on a cordial note, you can say. But then, and then we all hear, since our childhood, we have heard this thing called Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, these things. So when on the very birth there is someone who supports you, and when there is this signing of Panchsheel agreement, and that Panchsheel agreement says that you be content with your own sovereignty, I be content with my own sovereignty. I won't indulge in your internal affairs, you don't indulge in my internal affairs. When things are actually taking place on this friendly note, then suddenly how it so happens that we are touted as one of the enemies, and once the even the defense minister of India, I hope I'm not wrong, George Fernandez, said that China is enemy number one. So how is it that these things fluctuate in such a manner, in I'll say in such a short a span of time? Because 1950s, India recognized China as a country, and in 1962 there was a war. So what happened? See, the thing is, if I'm allowed to explain these things in terms of theory, in order that people may understand it, see, every nation has an urge to dominate the world. Every nation, and the proponents of realism say that it goes to the very nature of man, because human being, I'll not say man, human being actually want to dominate. This is one of the versions. We may contest that, but this is one of the founding principle of realism. So, in international politics, in international relations, nations are actually the main entity which actually are the actors which sets things going, which sets the ball rolling. So nations actually want to dominate the world, and the manner in which the different nations do this has a lot to do with its own might, with its own the manner in which the nation has actually developed, the level of development the nation is in. So all these things contribute to the existence of that urge in different measures. So scholars have defined this in terms of three levels of power: the local power, the regional power, and there are a lot many dimensions of explaining this, but for sake of simplicity, I'll reduce it to three, and that is the local power, the regional power, and the global power. So local power meaning by there is an area, there is a South Asian region, for example. In the South Asian region, there will come country which will like to dominate the other countries. So for example, for understanding sake, for convenience sake, we take South Asian region. In the South Asian region, India, because of its size, because of the nature of its history, India wants to dominate in the South Asian region. So for all practical purposes, India will give the impression that it is sort of a big brother. So if you are with us, with me, so there will be all good for you. Otherwise, if you are not with me, the other countries, then it will be problematic for you. So for example, Nepal, for example, Bangladesh, for example, Sri Lanka, even for that matter, Pakistan. So all these countries, India trying to assert its supremacy to become a local power. And in terms of international relations theory, we call it hegemon. So local hegemon emerges. But the thing is, as in case of human being too, see, if you want to assert your supremacy, you always have your friends with you, because they will never want you to dominate them. Similarly, and see, your friends will challenge you according to their own capability. So what happens? When India wants to emerge as a local hegemon, then Pakistan will use all its might, for example, whatever it has in its hand, in order to challenge the rise of this local hegemon. So these things happen. In the local setting, these things are happening. Similar things happen in the regional setup. So if we broaden the frame of our reference from South Asia to whole of Asia, so in the whole of Asia, maybe I'll sound a bit too giving more importance to countries like India and China. That is because of the reason that our strategic gaze is fixed on these things. Otherwise, this is not the case. There are other players too. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm trying to say this thing. So if we increase the broaden the frame of reference from these regions, South Asia to Asia, so we see two paths. There is India and there is China. So China, for all practical purposes, whether we want it or we don't want it, but the statistics say China is far ahead of us. And China actually has already emerged as a regional power, and it is now in the category of being a challenger to the global power. So if you are challenging the global power, you want to have the hegemony of the world, as America is now. So now we see a tension between America and China that way. All this COVID crisis, Trump's pronunciations and Trump's tweets, and Trump's taking lead in castigating China as the originator of all the problems in the world, most of the problems in the world. So that way, so coming back to the things which we were discussing, in this region called Asia, China and India do pass. So China has already emerged. India, to the extent possible, will not let this happen. And what China will do? China will try to implicate India in such a manner so that India is not able to challenge China. So what China will do? China will try to embroil India in some issues with its local power, local countries, the neighboring countries, for example Nepal, for example Pakistan, so that India gets embroiled in these controversies with these smaller countries. And when, see, you cannot open your front with a lot many people at one go. So if you are fighting with, for example, Pakistan, if you are fighting with Nepal, if you are fighting with Bangladesh, so you don't have time to see to a bigger challenge like China. So in that sense, what happens most of the time, you will see what China does. China doesn't do things because China has even at the cost of sounding a bit, I'll say, impressed by China, China has emerged far ahead, and China has accumulated such sort of acumens, which for all practical purposes makes it a challenger to the global power. So that way, it gets India embroiled into controversies with Pakistan. So all the time, you are embroiled in a controversy with Pakistan. See, the problem with, as you talked about the other regimes and the current regime, yes, every regime has its own way of dealing with these things. But in international relations, generally, the various regimes actually don't change the foreign policy. So foreign policy doesn't change. Government changes, but foreign policy doesn't change. What actually happens is the change in the optics. So, in a sense, the same policies continue, but when a new incumbent comes to the position of prime ministership, he or she tries to give the impression that he or she is doing something very, very, very unique. But actually, that is not the thing. That person actually tries to change the optics and the situation in which one finds one in. So, if you see the current regime, how much time I have got? So I can say for 6 more minutes.
Sure.
See, what actually happens if you go to the history. We just now saw that in 1950s India actually recognized, and then the mutual recognition between these two countries, whatever happened, that happened. Then a strange thing, not a strange thing, a very important incident happened. And that important incident was the annexation of Tibet by China. Any country is very particular about its territory. And I say that any country is very particular about its own territory. What I mean is that the definition of territory of that country, the definition of sovereignty by that country. So for that matter, China always has this principle that Tibet, there is one China policy. China is very particular, very sentimental about it. For that matter, every country is very sentimental about its territory and territorial sovereignty. So Tibet actually found itself embroiled in a sort of a problem, and Dalai Lama had to flee because of Chinese involvement there, because of Chinese taking of power from there. And it so happened that India actually allowed not just, in a sense, refugee status to those fleeing Tibet, but actually India allowed those people who came from Tibet to establish a government of their own in Dharamshala. So Dharamshala actually is having a parallel government or shadow government, you can say, in India. So obviously this will not go well with China. So that is one of the reasons. There are a lot many other reasons too that led to the creation of a situation in which there was this Chinese incursion, I'll say, and the Chinese fight between India and China in 1962. And there was a lot of problem because we never expected, because in the popular narrative, we always thought that China is Hindi Chini bhai bhai. Bhai bhai meaning by we are brothers. We are more than brothers. Okay? And we were also the people who supported China in its bid to the membership of United Nations. That's also a great thing. Because India itself could have been a contender, and I just now discussed with you the tension with regard to the regional power, local power, and the emergence of the regional being a regional hegemon, being a local hegemon, being a world hegemon. So from that perspective too, it was unlikely for a country like India to support China, but India supported China in its bid to become a member of the United Nations. Okay, so cutting a long story short, as a result of the 1962 thing, people in India actually did a lot many things and modernized as army, and we came to learn about our weaknesses. But then the situation which has reached to the level of a war, that got somewhat watered down. And then we had during the time of Rajiv Gandhi, I think, yes, during the time of Rajiv Gandhi made a trip to Beijing. Rajiv Gandhi went to China. And then in 1993, Narasimha Rao signed an agreement with the Chinese government in 1993. And then all the things actually moved on. And recently we had in 2015 a visit by very, very well opticized, giving a lot of optics to the pagoda visit of Prime Minister Modi with the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, and both were walking in a very manner of very camaraderie. So that was very well, that was given a very good optics, and that has a lot to do with the Modi regime, the manner in which. But during that visit, a lot of business memorandum of understanding, political memorandum of understanding, all these things were signed. More than 50 outcome reports came as a result of this meeting in 2015. And that was actually the point where it was expected that both these countries are moving on in a very positive note, and both have actually realized the fact that in this modern world, in this world of today, it's not the intense competition or the rivalry which will be of help. It's actually now it's the world of globalization, and now you can only move forward if you accompany others with you, if you ask others to come with you. So it was thought that both these countries have realized this. This was the optics. In reality, what happened? The contentious issues. What were the contentious issues? The contentious issues related to the formalization of the line of actual control. This was the most contentious issue. So though despite the fact that there was signing of treaties between both these two countries to even create a joint institution of learning, 3 joint institution of learning, one in Ahmedabad related to entrepreneurship, 2 in China related to yoga studies, Ghanaian studies, peace studies, these things, these 3 institutions were also formalized in that meeting. But the most contentious issue of formalizing the area of LAC, line of actual control, that was planned to be discussed, but that was not taken in that manner in which it should have been taken. What actually China was very impatient about in that meeting? This gives us the clue that what China is and what India is, and what actually are the plans of China. You may also see that this was the time around these 2000 onwards, even before that, 2000 onward more. See, this was the time when China is actually on a very aggressive policy of influencing others. So the manner in which China is investing in African countries, and mind you, in most of the cases where China has actually taken lead in the African countries, in many of the places, China has outplaced India from those areas. So the real loser is India in those places. China has actually been on a very aggressive policy of controlling the sea routes. So if I may have a map, yeah, see there. See, you might have, we might be aware of the Chinese position in South China Sea. In South China Sea, from South China Sea to the Indian Ocean, China actually wants to secure its sea lane of communication. And securing sea lane of communication is very important, because when you secure the sea lane of communication, you rise higher up in that your aspiration of becoming a regional and a global hegemon. So becoming a global hegemon wants you to capture as many resources as possible, and capturing or domineering, I'll rather say, because you cannot capture these things that we used to do erstwhile. So domineering this sea lane of communication, because you are the only power who has got the power to navigate things. So that way, if you secure the sea lane of communication that way, you will be in a better position to have your grip on the countries which you want to. And that was also the time when that string of pearl thing came, because China was in constant talk with Pakistan. Pakistan is a second fiddle to China, I'll say. China has been very close relationship with China. So there was this Hambantota port. There was this in Sri Lanka also. So from Sri Lanka to there was Chabahar. So these ports in a string of pearl were there to counter the emergence of China in whatever manner it was being done. So all these things in the 2015 Modi Xi Jinping talk, all these things were tried to be negotiated from the Chinese perspective. Because what China said that what we want as regards the border issue between these two countries is to formalize the existing arrangement. You understand? Formalizing the arrangement as pertaining to the status quo existing with relation to the activities of Indian forces there. So what China wanted to achieve by doing this? Two things China wanted to achieve. If you actually try to maintain the status quo, so China will be in a position to do the things which it want to do, but you will be constrained by the talk to not move your armies, not move your people in order to patrol those areas in a better manner. Because see, every day you improve upon. So if you agree upon something now, so 2 years hence or even 6 months hence, there will be some more technological development. So you have to move those equipments to that place. And if you agree on the status quo that we will not be doing anything else, so what you are doing, you are actually bartering your sovereignty in order to maintain peace from your side. And that also was one of the reasons why China was insistent on formalizing the status quo that way. This because of the fact that China was doing things in Tibet or at other places which would have definitely been opposed by anyone, of course, India. So that way, this is the politics. This is the main issue, which actually didn't get that much media optics because of the factors, you know. So what actually happened as a result of all these things? As a result of these things, and see what happened. See what happens when we are in a sort of a situation in the country. When we try to all the time be supportive of whatever is being done by the government for whatever reasons, the critical element doesn't come to fore. And when the critical element doesn't come to fore, it actually creates a lot of problem for the long run, in the long run. So what happens? As a result of those things, if those crucially important things have been highlighted at that time, things like this would not have happened now, because we saw that Doklam happen. We see now Chinese increase has happened. Why is that it has happened? It has happened because we all got our eyes fixated on the goodies. Everything is good. Our Prime Minister is in hands and gloves with the Chinese Premier. Chinese Premier is praising India. Chinese Premier is opening Indian universities in China. So we have increased our soft power. We have won China. Actually, that was the thing. That was actually a ploy. That was actually a strategy by China in order to embroil India in a sort of other activities and continue the things which it is going to do. See, recently what